All right, let's talk about former President Trump. He's slamming the weaponized, as he calls it, and corrupt Justice Department. He's also calling out recently appointed special counsel Jack Smith. Trump called Smith a political hitman on Truth this past weekend. He also said Smith should not be allowed anywhere near the DOJ or the FBI.
Now, the former president also referenced a Washington Examiner's report which focused on Smith's ties to Lois Lerner. Of course, we remember that. The report says Jack Smith was instrumental in Lerner's IRS scandal years ago. She led that effort at the IRS to target Tea Party organizations. Well, Smith apparently wanted the FBI to also dig into the financial records of these organizations. Lerner was never charged with anything, did issue an apology.
All right, let's welcome in former Virginia Governor Bob McDonnell. He joins us for more on this. He's also very familiar with Jack Smith's tactics. Great to see you, Governor.
Hi, Governor.
Thanks, John, Bianca. Appreciate you having me on.
Now, the Washington Examiner story also mentions your case, and in case people don't know this, you were prosecuted by Jack Smith and convicted, but your case was sent to the Supreme Court and it was tossed out there. Your conviction was tossed out by the U.S. Supreme Court. But this is my question. Is what Donald Trump said about Jack Smith accurate?
You know, I can only go on the basis of my own case. Obviously, what happened with Lois Lerner and John Edwards, two other cases where they came up with novel theories and they were either debunked at trial or never brought forward. But in my case, it was an incredibly novel legal theory, John, where the government prosecuted me for basically setting up meetings and inviting a donor to a party for donations that were legal under Virginia law, but saying that that was a federal criminal offense. And of course, the United States Supreme Court, from unanimously deciding that this was completely wrong. And I guess my concern is, John, that our lawyers, before the indictment was brought down, gave the Justice Department a 40-page legal memo explaining why this was a completely wrong theory of the law under the definitions of official act, why it would never be sustained in the Supreme Court, and why other cases that had no jury instructions like that had ever been presented in a case like mine, and yet they persisted and, of course, unanimously turned down. So I guess my concern is Mr. Smith's judgment in going forward in a case like this, whether it was political or just to prosecute a high-profile elected official. In either case, that's not good judgment to be in charge of an investigation into a former president.
Yeah, and everything you've had to endure, Governor. I mean, it did work out for you, fortunately. But again, you're right. At Jack Smith's, work here is coming into focus as we look at, he's a special counsel, and the DOJ has not appointed a special counsel for any investigation into the Biden family. And we have Hunter Biden's laptop. We know that, Republicans will try to go after some of the things to try and find out who the big guy is and tie it to that. But again, the DOJ not interested apparently in that.
The harm that comes in a case like this, Bianca, to your point, I incurred $28 million in legal fees. I had two of the best law firms in the country, which most people would never have the advantage like that. It took 3.5 years, a tremendous toll on my family and my state. And, there were legal briefs that showed that, 5 former White House counsel from Reagan to Obama all said this was wrong. 83 state attorney generals filed a brief again, and yet they persisted. So, for President Trump to have to face a DOJ with a special prosecutor like that is of great concern. And to your point, Hillary Clinton, Hunter Biden, on and on. People on the left seem to get a pass on all bad behavior. Nobody cares. I think there's something built in with tremendous bias at the DOJ, and that's not fair.
And separate from President Trump, I guess, is what this could do, the precedent it could set in terms of eroding executive privilege and how important that has been to the executive branch for so long. We'll have to see what happens there. But I also wanted to ask you about this rift in the Republican Party over the Respect for Marriage Act. Senator Mike Lee of Utah, along with some other conservatives, says the bill does not protect faith-based institutions and it jeopardizes religious liberty. He proposed that amendment, which would have prohibited the federal government from retaliating against anyone for adhering to their moral convictions about traditional marriage. Like, for example, faith-based universities and colleges or nonprofits could lose their tax-exempt status, according to Senator Lee, if this is passed. Do you agree with his concerns?
Absolutely. And I tell you what, they don't put a religious exemption in that. They're teeing this up to be stricken overwhelmingly, I think, by the United States Supreme Court, because it's government forcing people to adopt a theory that is contrary to their religious beliefs. That's completely antithetical to the First Amendment. It's hard to explain why these 12 Republicans voted that way. John, I could say it's a combination of libertarians who really believe government shouldn't regulate marriage, and frankly, maybe moderate Republicans who look at what's happened in the culture, where in the last 15 years,
well, I think there's maybe 3 or 4 Republicans, Governor, who are not, going to be in Congress this time next year.
Well,
so they're voting on behalf of this. But
I think it speaks to the legal cases we've seen stemming from that. If a baker doesn't want to bake a certain type of cake, and we're talking about how this could go on for years and really bankrupt people just for their religious beliefs, Governor.
Well, Mr. Jefferson wrote the Virginia Statute of Religious Freedom in 1786, forerunner to the First Amendment. It says exactly that it's tyranny for government to basically control the dictates of an individual's conscience in matters of religion. And without these exceptions for religious liberties, I think the case gets struck down. It's the wrong way to go. And of course, when you undermine about 5,000 years of beliefs that marriage is between one man and one woman, you come up with these intractable problems of where does somebody go to the bathroom? Can a boy compete against a woman in swimming? I mean, nobody's got answers to this, and we're just heading down the wrong road, really, for society and beyond if we go down this road.
It will be interesting if this does go to the Supreme Court, as you indicated it could, because the makeup of the court is much different now than it was when the Obergefell case actually codified same-sex marriage into law. And Justice Alito, I know, he had some comments back then, and he is perhaps waiting to change things with a conservative majority on the bench. Great to see you, Governor, as always.